Hi, Ghosties. I'm Macy.
And I'm Natalie.
And sadly, Appalachia April is slowly coming to an end. But we do have one more set of listener stories before our final Appalachia April episode. This one's a good one. Spooky. There's only 3 stories because one of them was very long.
Oh, okay.
But it was good. I didn't even finish reading it. I read the first half and I was like, oh, we're going to be surprised together. This is going to be great.
3 stories. That's very interesting.
Yes. So today we have creepy cabins in the woods, a terrifyingly haunted house in West Virginia, and one family's supposed curse with 30 years of hauntings.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm intrigued. Is that the long one?
Well, yes. It has to be long if you're detailing 30 years, of a curse.
Wow, that's wild. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. And our tea today is a, regular favorite. It's Bigelow English Teatime.
Perfect for a cozy 3-story episode.
Yes.
I'm baffled, but intrigued.
Let's go. Our first story today comes from Via. Hey girlies, my name is Via and I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I love listening to podcasts at my kitchen job, and yours specifically has gotten me through some exhausting shifts. And I had the idea to send in my 2 crazy experiences. One of them actually happened in Appalachia.
Ooh.
So this one happened when I was 16. I'm 18, turning 19 for context. And me and my family were going to visit family in West Virginia. Right towards the end of the trip, we decided to rent a cabin in the woods. I know, not the safest place in Appalachia. And all was going pretty well until our second night there. We'd messed up by not realizing there were only 2 bedrooms and 2 beds, 1 king and 1 twin, and there were 4 of us. The owner told us there would be a pull-out bed in the living room, and I told my parents I was okay sleeping there. It was a small cabin with a window to my right and a back door right behind me to my right. There was a TV in front of me with a window behind, and the front door was maybe 7 feet away from the couch. My parents and brother were in their bedroom. It was dark out, and I was feeling really nervous for some reason. I chalked it up to me being in an unknown place, and it was dark out. I turned on the TV, and was just watching until I fell asleep. Right as I was dozing off, I heard something like a crack of a branch outside to my right. I thought it was just some animal and tried to pay attention to my show. But then I heard another crunch, like the sound of someone stepping on the forest floor. Then I heard another, and another, and another, until it sounded like footsteps walking towards the house. And then it started walking from my right near the window. The curtains were pulled, and walked until it was in front of the window in front of me, then would turn and walk back towards my right. Stop near the back door, then repeat and walk back. This happened for a while, and I was honestly too scared to look away from the TV. But when I decided to look towards the window when it walked past, I saw a glimpse of a shadow moving through a gap in the curtains. This freaked me out so bad, but I was too scared to move, so I grabbed my phone that was nearby, and I called my dad. The second I started whispering into my phone, I heard the footsteps outside pause, and then start back up again. I told my dad that I thought there was somebody outside, and he immediately came out of his room, grabbed a flashlight and a huge knife from the kitchen, and walked to the back door. I got up and went after him, and he looked through the peephole. Didn't see anybody. So he threw the door open and started yelling for them to leave. Right as he threw the door open, I caught a glimpse of a black figure. It looked like a man, but just a shadow, no features or clothes, duck behind a tree. I screamed and started sobbing. My dad announced to whatever was out there that he had a gun, he didn't, and wouldn't hesitate to shoot them. We walked around the house, and I was just praying the whole time because I didn't know what else to do. We couldn't find anyone. He told me to go to his room, and I slept there. He stayed out there for a little longer, then went to bed on the pull-out couch. The next night, I was still too scared, so I refused to sleep there. My dad slept there for the next 2 nights. We were sleeping in this cabin. As we were leaving, the owner of the house stopped by. He asked how our stay was, and my mom jokingly said, "Our daughter thinks she saw a ghost." But the man got really serious and looked at me and said, "I've seen him too." When me and my parents pressed him for more, he just said, "Nobody knows what it is, but it walks around the house here. If you ignore it, eventually it walks away." My mom is convinced that he said it to spook me, but something about the look in that man's eyes makes me think he was dead serious. Thankfully, nothing happened the rest of the trip.
Well, I believe him because he said it walks around the house.
Right? Oh, same experience?
Mm-hmm. That's really horrifying.
I've seen him too.
Honestly, it being a ghost is better than it being a real person.
Yeah, I agree.
Traipsing around the cabin.
I agree.
Exterior,
100%. Because at least somehow this spirit, the shadow being, can't get in.
Yeah.
It's stuck perpetually outside, which is
sad for
soothing.
them.
Sad for him. Soothing for those inside the cabin.
Yes.
But shout out to Dad, because I was brave.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
So they have another story and said, okay, this didn't happen in Appalachia, but in all caps, but please still read it. It's so crazy in my opinion. And it was. Okay, it truly was. So I live in Washington, not near Appalachia, but I still hold the suspicion of not fully trusting any forest, no matter where. This happened at my old house. We lived in a townhome complex surrounded by trees and a forest. I was about 11 at the time, but I remember this so vividly. I used to be a real scaredy cat as a kid, and if I got too spooked at night, I would go sleep in my parents' bed. That night, I asked my dad if I could sleep in his bed and watch cartoons on their TV. He said okay, since he went to bed around 1 a.m., he would have just gone in, picked me up, and carried me to my own bed where I would sleep the rest of the night. I tried my hardest to stay up so I could keep watching TV, but I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, I was woken up to someone stroking my hair. I tried moving my arms and legs to no avail, and when I tried to move my head to see who was touching me, I could barely move it side to side. But y'all, I really felt it. It felt like something brushing against my hair rhythmically, like they were trying to lull me back to sleep.
Oh, God.
All I could see out of the corner of my eye was a white figure, like eggshell white, with no hair, no clothes, no face I could make out. Suddenly, I heard my mother's voice. Nobody believes me when I say this, but I know my mom's voice, and it was her speaking it. I also know it couldn't have been her, because y'all, my mom is Latina. She's not white at all. But this figure was saying things like, shh, shh, it's okay. Just go back to bed. I didn't mean to wake you. I'm sorry. It's fine. Go back to bed. I tried to speak and say, Mom, but I couldn't even open my mouth. The figure must have noticed my distress and started being more insistent. Go back to bed. It's fine. You need to go back to bed now. Then I heard a muffled noise come from somewhere outside the room. The figure stopped touching me and stopped speaking and seemed to move out of my limited line of sight. I decided to shut my eyes and try to sleep, and soon I did. When I woke up the next day, I had a headache and a full recollection of what happened. My dad was getting ready in his closet and told me that he didn't move me because he, quote, got this feeling that I shouldn't have been alone, and ended up sleeping on the couch in the room. Right before I got out of bed, I was hit with this sickening reality. My mother wasn't home last night.
Oh, my God.
She was out of the country visiting my sick grandma. She wouldn't have been able to be next to me, stroking my hair. I freaked out but couldn't tell my dad what I saw, so I just kept crying. He thought I was crying because I missed my mom. To this day, the story still gives me a pit in my stomach. I could have been having sleep paralysis, but I hate the fact that I could feel whatever was touching me, and it was close to my head. And the sheer audacity of it to use my own mother's voice. I've never experienced anything like that again, but when I do feel like I'm having sleep paralysis, I shut my eyes tight and repeat, do not touch me, do not speak to me, you have no control or power over me, you aren't welcome here, over and over again in my mind until it's over. When I wake up, I repeat the same thing and pray out loud. I'm a practicing Catholic, and it's just something I do to make myself feel better. I understand not everybody does it or is religious, but it makes me feel safer. I love your girls' podcast. I really hope you'll read my stories. I think I would fangirl so hard. Here you go.
Well, hello.
But I hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Oh, wow.
The image
no.
of this eggshell white hairless being right there at your head, right there. And they weren't having sleep paralysis because they moved their head.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that.
They moved.
Okay, so weird to me that the thing waited until the mom was out of the country.
Yeah.
Like the mom's not home and it's like, now it's my time.
Chills right now.
Actually, no, I can't think of a good explanation. Never mind. No, nothing.
Like a logical explanation? Like something.
Or like trying to think like maybe the thing was just wanting to be motherly to you. I don't know, but that's horrifying to even think, so I don't know.
It's insistence
a way to make it better
on them going back to sleep, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
I also want to note that one time I said a logical explanation, someone in the comments said, why isn't paranormal considered logical? And though I agree, I mean from a skeptic's point of view.
Yeah.
But just putting that out there because it's logical to me. Obviously, we're here.
I feel like that was implied.
Maybe, but I just want to, if it's not implied, for those of you out there who agree with us,
yeah,
we know, you know. Anyway, I'm scared. I literally have chills like right now.
Yeah, that was disgusting. Whenever it said like I felt her touch me, like I like got like an itch in my leg. I just got like my body got scared.
Yeah. Our next story comes from Hannah. Hi, my name's Hannah, and I've been a listener for about a little over a month now, thanks to my mom getting me to watch and listen to you guys. Shout out, Mom.
For real, that's cute.
Hearing other people's stories really made me want to send in my stories. I live in a small town in West Virginia, and considering West Virginia is right in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains, you know spooky stuff happens here every day. I have a ton of stories that have happened to me, my family, and my friends, so if you want to hear more, just say so, and I will happily send them to you. We do. Yes, please. But I'm going to start with just 3 for now. We used to live in a house when I was a freshman in high school. I'm now 27, so this has been a while. And when I say something is haunting that house, I mean it's really haunting it. When we moved in, and I'm talking the very first day, we walked to the basement just to check it out, and we instantly knew the basement wasn't right. There was just a feeling the moment you walked into it. There was a little door to the side that wasn't just locked, it was bolted shut, like a previous resident was trying to keep something from getting out. My mom was immediately freaked out when she saw it and said, "Don't open it." But my dad was determined to get it open. And he did. When that door came open, it felt like something sinister was in there. I think when that door was opened, that's when everything got released.
Oh, God.
Here's 3 incidents of things that happened to us while living there. 1. My mom went to bed one night after me and my brother had gone to bed, as she always did. My dad was downstairs in the living room watching TV. All she remembers is her being in the twilight sleep, where you're in that half awake, half asleep stage, when she heard someone come walking up the stairs, come into her and my dad's bedroom, and she felt someone crawl into bed with her. She said that she just figured it was my dad since it was getting late, and said, "It's about time you came to bed," and rolled over so she could give him a kiss goodnight. When she rolled over and opened her eyes,
No.
it wasn't my dad in the bed with my mom. It was an old woman that had crawled into bed with her. She said she had long gray hair, wrinkled skin, and an evil smile. She jumped back while in bed and blinked, and the woman was gone. She jumped out of bed and came running downstairs. I remember hearing her come flying down the stairs, freaking out and screaming, asking my dad if he had played a prank on her or something, because there was just an old woman in bed with her. My dad laughed and said, "Honey, I've been down here watching TV. You probably just had a bad dream." My dad has never been one to believe in the paranormal, but that would soon change.
Oh, I'm sick.
I'm sick. I'm sick.
I hate it.
We've had another story like that. Remember where it was much weirder, where she was staying at a friend's cabin or family friend or something, and the old man like crawled up into bed, and she watched him crawl from the bottom.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I don't know why. I think it was like a shock to me. I was expecting it to be like a man, like a man's spirit, like I don't know, because she was expecting the husband. I thought it was gonna be like, oh, it's just like a dark, shadowy man. But the added shock that it was an old woman, I don't know why that was extra scary to me.
Okay, I know why.
Drag me to hell. Get away?
That's exactly what I was envisioning, but like
That's
a smile.
not even funny that you showed me that. That's actually like so traumatizing to me. That movie
I'm sorry, that was
ruined my life.
the very, very first thing I thought.
I did too.
With the old woman smiling at her in bed, that's the lady's face that I
That is
pictured.
exactly what I was picturing as well. Oh, I'm unwell.
Ugh.
I'm very unwell.
And halfway through, I remembered what the story was about, so I had to like compose myself.
Yeah, that was sick.
I'm so sorry.
That was so sick.
Okay, I just needed you to know what I was talking about.
Ooh, I did.
Okay, story 2. The second one was with my younger brother. Every night when we would go to sleep, my mom would come and check on us. It was her routine that before she went to bed, she'd check on me and my brother since our bedrooms were downstairs and hers and my dad's bedroom was upstairs. She had started noticing, not long after we moved in, that my brother would always be asleep with a radio on, kind of loud, and be asleep with his blanket over his head. And there were many times when she would find him asleep in my bedroom, on the floor, right up against my bed. She never really understood why he was doing this, but once he was asleep, she'd turn the radio down and kind of pull his blanket down. Or if he was in my room, she would wake him up and make him go back to his bedroom. It wasn't until just a few years ago, when we were talking about the house, that my mom finally asked my brother why he slept like that. He looked at her and said, "Mom, every night when I would go to sleep, an old, tall man with no face would walk into my room and stand at the end of my bed and watch me sleep. He never said anything or even moved. He would just stare at me. So I thought if I slept with my blanket over my head, he couldn't see me and I couldn't see him." It bothered my mom ever since he told us that. She said, "I feel like an awful mom for not knowing my son was scared to sleep in his room." My brother still, to this day, will not talk very much about that old man.
It makes it scarier because he doesn't want to talk about it.
As
truly,
I'm assuming an adult.
Yeah. Not a fan, but that's the type of figure I was expecting the mom to see.
And finally, 3, this happened to me, and it was the day my dad finally believed in the paranormal because it happened right in front of him. When dad believes, you know.
I don't like it. I don't like it because anytime we get family stories, we've said it's like there's always a parent, at least one of them, that's like, "Ah, no, guys, it's fine," like trying to keep the peace. And once they start believing, it's like, what do we do?
We were all sitting in the living room one evening or night watching a movie. I was sitting in a chair that had my back facing the kitchen stairs to the upstairs. My mom was sitting on the love seat, and my dad and brother were sitting on the couch. All of a sudden, we hear someone run down the stairs, kind of like military boots running, run through the kitchen, run up behind me in the living room. I was wearing a hoodie, and this thing grabbed the hood on my hoodie and lifted it and me. And when I was lifted, I mean it lifted it pretty high to where my hair was lifting with it and pulled me backwards to where I flipped backwards in the chair and I landed in the middle of the living room.
No.
I started screaming and crying. My mom and dad yelled at the same time, "What the hell was that?" And "What the hell just happened?" The whole thing left my dad speechless. That was the day he finally started to believe in the paranormal. It wasn't long after that we moved out. And still to this day, about 13 years later, I still get a little nervous to wear hoodies and sit in chairs where my back is going to be facing an open space. There's so many more stories I could tell you about our time living in that house and things that have happened ever since and before, if you guys want to hear those as well. Thank you for listening to these and hope you enjoyed. Hope to hear it on the podcast. Have a spooky day, Ghosties. Anna.
I wasn't expecting it to be so violent.
And physically, like, moving you
no.
in front of your whole family.
That's very dark. Also, they moved. Thank you. Thank you. I was so afraid they were going to be like, and my family still lives there to this day. Anyways, that's scary. Send us the address, actually. I would like to see this house and the history of it.
You know what? I was going to mention this to you off camera, but there's this girl I found on Instagram. Her name's like Brown or something, and she's a psychic. And she does house readings, and people will send her listings or houses that they just bought or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And I was thinking, like, when you're like, send us the address, we can like see if we can feel any vibes. Not that we're mediums or anything.
I was going to say, can you gather things like that just from a listing?
From pictures? Some people say that you can. So there are some kind of psychics. I don't remember what it's called.
Well, I guess, yeah, we know that because people do that with like solving missing people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I get, okay.
Tell us something. Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about it before. All right, our final story, the long one, is from Shae. Hey, Ghosties, I'll go by Shae for the sake of these stories, but I admit that is not my real name. I am choosing to use a pseudonym. You will get why soon. So first off, I have to say I love the pod and adore the Appalachian story episodes most. I am, of course, from the heart of Appalachia, making me biased. Buckle up, ladies. This is going to be a long and terrifying tale. Also, please say aloud, this energy may not follow this email to you. I don't know if it affects others the way it does my family, but I certainly don't want to pass anything along.
Oh my God. Okay.
So we'll set the intention, the demands, if you will. The energy does not follow us through this email. It does not follow any of our listeners or followers through the screen, through the podcast, listening, whatever we're doing. Love and light only.
What an insane starter. All right.
Until recently, I lived in the southernmost part of West Virginia in a tiny little town with a population of just under 200 people. I know, right? It's so remote, I've heard people call it a third world country, jokingly. As you can surely imagine, there's more wilderness than civilization. People live deep in the mountains. This isn't like the Appalachian trails. The trails are considered touristy in the area I'm talking about. This is deep in the hollers, surrounded by mountains and forest-type solitude. For context, the nearest Walmart was an hour to an hour and a half away at least, in any direction. To say there was nothing to do growing up was an understatement. Most places had already closed down as the coal boom had ended, and the country started turning to cleaner energy sources. Most families lived in poverty, and mine was just the same. I say this because odd noises in a run-down old home that is falling apart do not lift many eyebrows, if you know what I mean. Hearing someone was murdered in a house did not mean, oh, it could be haunted. It meant, oh, it's on sale. And we may actually be able to afford it. It's terrible, but true and relevant for later. My earliest memory of strange occurrences goes back to me being no more than maybe 6. We live in a run-down trailer, and for whatever reason, people were under the impression I liked porcelain dolls. I did not. I had a collection because people kept buying them as gifts for me. I was too kind-hearted to tell them they terrified me. Anyways, one particular doll scared me more than all the others. She had been gifted to me, as they all had been, by relatives. She had orangey red curls, big emerald green eyes, and was dressed in a pale orange Victorian-style dress. Something about her just felt wrong. I put her with the others and promptly stopped being able to sleep. As we were poor, I didn't have a room of my own. I slept on the couch in the living room. The dolls were on a shelf directly behind that couch. Many nights I would stare at that doll, trembling in fear. When I closed my eyes, I could hear the distinctive tink that porcelain dolls make when you move them around. My eyes would snap open, and Red, as I came to call her, would be slightly moved. At first it was subtle, an arm in a new position, head turned slightly from where I knew it had been moments before. But as time went, things escalated. The doll was on a stand that hooked around her waist from behind on both sides. The point, as far as the manufacturers were concerned, was to keep the doll from falling over, I guess. But I thought of it as a tiny prison that kept the doll on the shelf. The metal was very firm, and even I had trouble maneuvering it. No way the doll could, right? Boy, was I wrong. One night, as I settled down to sleep, I heard the familiar tink, tink, and sleepily looked at the shelf. She was gone. Not moved, not shifted, flipping gone. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I frantically looked around the room for any sign. I heard faint giggles and tink, tink, tink. This was the 90s, so grabbing a cell phone for a flashlight wasn't an option. Luckily, to appease my bad dreams, my mother had taken to leaving on a small light in the kitchen, which was a connected space to the living room. I wasn't in total darkness. I could make out shadows. I thought I saw something moving down the hall, just off the kitchen. I sat, frozen in fear. Then I heard my brother scream. I rushed down the hall just as he came storming towards the living room holding Red. He was furious with me and demanded why had I put the doll on his chest. Something about the look on my face must have caught his attention. He looked from me to the doll and said, You put it there, right? I shook my head silently. We put Red back on her stand, and my brother used a zip tie to lock the two pieces of metal in place around her waist, then cut off the end so it would never be adjusted. She shifted around a lot after that. We even saw her giving us side-eye at times, but we never acknowledged it or spoke of that horrible night, and she never escaped her shelf prison again. After some time, we moved to a new home, and Red, along with the rest of the dolls, went into a box that I taped shut and left in storage. With the new home came a new stepdad. He was amazing, don't worry. I loved him dearly and will henceforth refer to him as my dad. When my mom moved in with and married Dad, they found a lovely 4-bedroom home that had room enough for all of us. No, he didn't have a lot of money. We as children at this point, I was around 11, simply never questioned why the house is so affordable. You can imagine why. But for the first time in my life, I had a bedroom. I was so excited. New home, no creepy dolls, my own space. I was convinced my strange haunting was over. Again, I was wrong. Of the houses we lived in during my childhood, this one felt the darkest. I began having regular encounters with a shadow figure. It would stand in the corner of my room at night and watch me sleep. I would often wake up in a state of panic and look around the room, and there it would be in the same corner by the door, blocking my way out. It was nearly as tall as the room itself. Imagine a supersized, hooded, grim reaper-type figure, except no scythe. Occasionally, there was a faint glow of red eyes, but not always. There was, however, always this bone-deep terror. I felt it before I even opened my eyes. I knew it was there by the feeling alone. I took to sleeping with my light on. My mother figured this out when the electric bill came, and I was forbidden to keep my childish fear of the dark.
Bro, that's so me.
Yeah. To protect myself, I pushed an old twin-size mattress and box spring into my closet. Yes, it was just big enough to fit, and slept in there with the closet light on instead. I put a blanket over the closet opening, there was no door, to block the light from shining into my bedroom, as my mother would go by my door to go to the bathroom, and if she saw my light coming from under my bedroom door, I'd be in trouble. I slept wonderfully in my little lit sanctuary. I even put a tiny TV in there, so the entity turned to others. One evening, my sister was in our parents' room. She and I were home alone, not uncommon, as she was around 14 now. I was in the living room, and she was in our parents' room, and I hear her yell, "Get out of my room, now!" I laugh, and I yell to her, "I'm in the living room." She came quickly down the hall and said, "I just saw you go into my room." I shrugged and said, "No, you didn't." She nodded and said, "Yeah, obviously, but yes, I did." We both ran outside and stayed outside, playing until our parents arrived home. Shortly after that, we were all, brother, sister, and myself, hanging out in my parents' room watching a movie together. They had the largest TV. It had gotten a little late, and we were just about to return to our respective rooms when the TV shut off and then turned to channel 12. A magazine flew out of the closet and landed on page 12. The clock started blinking like the power had gone off and reset it to 12 o'clock. We all tried to laugh it off like a very strange coincidence, but suddenly, no one was sleepy. We ended up in the kitchen making brownies as a family. No one wanted to be alone. My mother found out the next day a relative of hers had died the night before at midnight.
Oh, whoa. Okay, well, it's a relative.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Still so spooky for all of that to happen at once.
Yes.
Like 12, 12, 12.
Yeah, horrifying. But it doesn't have anything to do with whatever's in that house.
Yeah.
So fine, I'll accept that one. Out of all this so far, I'll accept that. The doll, I'm still grappling with.
The doll can stay in that box for the rest of eternity. It also happened that at this time, my sister and I were told a little family history by an older cousin. According to family lore, we were cursed, if you believe that sort of thing. Supposedly, our many times over great something ancestor was a witch. She had been scorned by her lover and reached out to dark forces and actually struck a deal. Supposedly, she bargained she would never find love again, nor would any of her descendants, and in return, she was given certain powers. And I guess serve the darkness or whatever. We're not just talking Satan here. She supposedly called on ancient Appalachian spirits. Now, believe me, at first, we laughed too. Then she took us to her grave. The grave was roughly covered in concrete and chains with heavy, ancient-looking locks. As the tale went, the darkness had consumed our ancestor, and eventually she was entombed there in the grave, but was not necessarily dead. We were told if we knocked on the grave, she would knock back. Our cousin kneeled down and knocked, then put her ear to the grave and she squealed, "I heard it!"
No.
I was so curious and skeptical, so I went next, my sister too frightened to even try. I knocked on the grave and then put my ear against the cold stone, and then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. I jumped up. I heard it too. We all screamed and ran for my cousin's car. She did avidly warn us after to never dabble with any kind of dark forces, like spellcraft, Ouija boards, etc., unless we wanted to awaken darkness in our own lives. I wonder if there's a way, like a connection, like if your ancestors are dealing with darkness, is that same darkness going to follow your, like, bloodline, you know?
Have
Or is that
you
too Hollywood?
have you watched Something Very Bad Is Gonna Happen?
No, I haven't. You told me.
Or going to happen? Okay. Never mind then.
Leave it there?
Never mind then.
Okay. I never really put much stock into the family lore, even after that experience. It was all just too much to believe. I do know that the women in my family have an uncanny knack for knowing things even when we are not told. We just know. And we are very sensitive to the spirit world. The men die young or become monsters, addicts, abusive, etc. There is no in-between. Guess great whoever really held a grudge where men were concerned. Regardless, whether or not it's because I have witchy blood is debatable, but I do know weird things happen around my family. I've never lived in a home that wasn't haunted. I've had experiences in every home I've ever been in. That alone does seem statistically wrong in some way. I could write it off as it's me that is haunted, but it's not the same entity following me from house to house. This is different individual hauntings that all just happened to the same person. Anyway, moving on. After the experience with Great Grammy Coffin Knocker, things only got more active in our lives.
That's hilarious.
The shadow figure came more often and began pacing around my room as if searching for me. Noises never ended. Footsteps, creaks, thuds could be heard throughout the house at any given hour. Perhaps the most unsettling thing was the final experience that pushed us to move out of that house altogether. This experience is my brother's, not my own. He was sleeping and said he heard a whisper. Maybe that woke him. It was startling, but we were all kind of used to paranormal activity at this point, so he just ignored it. Then he got the sudden urge to pee. He was slightly annoyed, but his bedroom was directly next to the bathroom, so he didn't have to go far in the dark hall, something we all tried to avoid now, alone. He said when he cleared his bed, the ceiling caved in, and the rubble landed on his bed where he had been seconds before. Whether the noise was a warning or something, I still wonder to this day. So that brings us to an entity you know and have discussed on your podcast before. In the next house we moved into, I had my first encounter with the Hat Man. More on that soon. So we had moved into a quaint 3-bedroom home. I had to share a room with my sister, but honestly, those big, excited, I want my own bedroom feelings had been well stamped out of me at the last house. I was happy to share one. I did not, however, have a bed. I can't remember why I needed a new one, but I did, so the kind man we were renting this new home from offered to leave one for me. So sweet, huh? Wrong.
Oh no.
It
I was
was
nodding and like, yeah, that is so sweet.
It was a hospice care hospital bed that someone had died in and left in the house. Meaning, yes, they died in the house, as well as the bed I would be sleeping in.
Now, why would you do that?
The child.
The man. Why would you do that?
By this time, the idea of dead means a deal no longer felt worth it to me. I did protest, but as there was no money for a new one and it was a perfectly functioning bed, I had no other choice but to sleep in it. That actually ended up being the least of my scares in that home. For a time, I did have to fight with my blanket at night. I would feel it being slowly drawn down off of my body while I slept. I would pull it back up and not acknowledge the fact that I saw nothing and no one that could have pulled it down. I did get tired of that rather quickly, and as I felt no animosity from the blanket puller, And maybe out of sheer exhaustion, one night I felt the familiar tug, and I sat straight up in my bed. I was angry, not frightened, and I said, "This is my bed now. You died, and you're just going to have to get over it. Leave me alone." I never felt another tug.
Nice.
I did, however, wake one night with that same sick terror I had felt with the hooded figure. I found out years later that sometimes the Hat Man can appear as a hooded figure, so maybe it was the same entity. I'm not sure, but it looked different. Same terror, new figure. I looked around the room and saw a shadow figure sitting on the edge of my sister's bed. It was dense blackness, but I could distinctly make out the shape of a hat. It was wide-brimmed and flat, like an old Clint Eastwood vibe. My heart raced, and I could tell he had looked up at me. Although I didn't know how, as I said, it was a dense black shape. I didn't see a face. I heard a low chuckle, and then, poof, I was alone. My sister had rolled over and was awake. I asked if she had seen it, and she sleepily said, "Seen what?" I honestly think my sister waking up is what caused it to leave. Shortly after this encounter, my grandmother died. I can't say it's 100% related. She didn't live in our home or anything, but it felt like it to me. At this point, I had become withdrawn and moody. I was close to my grandmother, and losing her was very hard on me. Add that to a severe lack of sleep, and as you can imagine, I was not mentally well. This next experience can be triggering because it deals with mental health and the desire to harm oneself, so I'll keep it brief, but it's important to include. So, warning to all of you. This was perhaps the first time I experienced something that was good, I guess. Anyway, as I said, I was having it rough. I was severely depressed. I couldn't sleep most nights, whether I was looking for shadow figures or hearing footsteps through the house. I just could not sleep. I was in the bathroom, crying, contemplating a forever nap, when I heard my grandmother's voice. She said, "Don't." That was all. It wasn't harsh or a command. It was a soft plea. And I knew she was with me. She could help fight off the bad spirits if she was watching over me. I slept for the first time in a very long time that night. If anything was lurking around, Grandma had it. Ooh, I'm gonna cry.
That's really sweet. I love that.
Okay, so in this house, the person that died was an old woman. We often heard her tending to housework. You could hear water running when the dishes needed done, and you'd walk in to soap and water in the sink. We had a coal-burning stove for heat, and she often tended the fire through the night. A rather funny experience there. My father thought it was me and my sister messing with the fire. He laid a trap to catch us, only to spring out and see just the fire poker sticking out of the door. No one around to have been tending the fire at all. He never got out of bed when he heard it again. Just with the dishes, he figured the old woman was just keeping out, and that was fine with him. The level of do not engage my family had gotten to was probably dangerous in itself, just saying, trusting the ghost to tend a fire. Anyway, little things like that happened a lot in that house. I also continued to wake in fear and saw the Hat Man at least twice more, each time preceding a death in the family. So here's where things take a turn for the what on earth were they thinking? In very horror movie fashion, my dad was an avid paranormal enthusiast. Now that we were all in our teens, I had turned 13 recently, he told us all of this cemetery where his father was buried. On their first date, he had taken my mom there. Yeah, I know, that was a strange first date spot, but let's accept my family is just weird and move on. Anyway, they had seen something. They had talked to a man while sitting in their car right outside the gates of the cemetery. He started to make them slightly uneasy, though neither said so at the time. As they were leaving, Dad, being a southern hospitality kind of guy, asked if the older gentleman needed a ride, as this cemetery was on the tippy top of an old mountain and he did not see another car around. He said, "Where do you live, old-timer?" To which the man silently replied by pointing out over the cemetery and then walking off through the gate as he faded away. They understandably peeled wheels and left. As children do, we begged them to take us, and to our great surprise, they did.
Oh my gosh.
Dad told us stories of the different ghosts he'd seen over his lifetime there and prepared us for what we may see. Quietly in the car, we acknowledged the spirits for the first time by saying, "It won't be much different than the other things we've seen." At this cemetery, we witnessed a woman in a white dress. She wandered around, weaving in and out of the lights around a specific grave. We could see her dress moving, almost as if she were dancing around the lights. Dad promptly points out the tree above the grave and tells us how the woman was supposedly hung from it by her husband for adultery back in whatever hundreds that sort of thing happened. I didn't even feel unsettled, just sad for her. I've taken many friends to see the woman in white over the years. She feels like a residual haunting, as she's always there around her tree and around a specific time. Anyway, the next part is where things got terrifying. My sister and I were holding hands as it was dark, and we didn't want to lose each other. My sister was holding onto a hand in front of her, which she thought was Dad. We were going deeper and deeper into the older part of the cemetery. We were stumbling, trying not to step on anyone's grave while keeping up with the harsh terrain when my sister's hand slid out of mine. I looked around and saw nothing but cemetery. It was extremely dark in this part of the cemetery, and it was in a dense thicket of trees and going downhill over the mountainside. I heard my sister scream from what sounded like yards away. I couldn't figure out how that was possible, as we had just been holding hands seconds before, but I ran towards the sound anyway. I got to her as she was stumbling up a particularly rough patch of hill. She was in tears and repeating, "It wasn't Dad, it wasn't Dad, it wasn't Dad," shaking from head to toe. I shook her a bit and said, "What was it then?" And she refused to tell me until we got out of there. Smart, considering. We get back to the top of the hill and find our actual dad looking for us. We had been missing for 30 minutes or so, though we had all been together holding hands, what I thought was moments before. Seeing my sister visibly shaken, Dad decided to get us out of there. When we were safely back in the car and had driven quite a distance away, my sister told us she had been holding something's hand when my hand slid from hers. It had led her a few steps, chuckled, and then turned to her, and the face she saw was demonic. She said the only thing she can compare it to is the creeper from the movie Jeepers Creepers.
Oh my God.
But 1,000 times worse. To this day, she wants nothing to do with that cemetery and will not return. Can't blame her there.
That's so scary.
Leading them away.
Oh my God.
Why was it leading the 2 children away?
And like, where were they going?
Deeper into
I don't
the
want to know
woods?
why. I just want to know where.
Other encounters in that cemetery include a child ghost I captured in a picture that night sitting on a grave, a light that you cannot get to no matter how far you go into the woods there. I tried it and do not recommend it. I just kept going deeper and deeper into the woods, and so did the light. I felt that there was nothing good waiting for me if I found the light or where it was taking me. There's a shadow that crawls up the hill just outside the cemetery. It likes to do just that when you're headed toward your car, or if someone is in the bed of a truck. It will chase you out of there. I could go on and on about everyone I've taken and their experiences, but that's another story for another time. And so it went for a few years. Our house was haunted, but we had made peace with that. I had those encounters I mentioned with the Hat Man, each time with me awakening in utter terror. He always seemed to be over my sister, though, not me. And so life prattled on. That house was very old, and we found out there was asbestos in the ceiling, so we ended up moving again, but to a house just up the hill behind that one. Now, this house was where I saw what I think was a mimic. By this time, my sister was grown and had moved out. Same with my brother. It was just me and the parental units in a 2-bedroom. This house I knew would be an experience because I had known the young handicapped boy that had lived there before us. He had cerebral palsy and passed shortly after moving out of that home. But it was the only home he truly lived in. I had been friends with him for a time as we were neighbors. So there were a couple of significant things that happened in this house. First, the mimic. I had a tendency to see people who were not really there in that house. For instance, I walked by the kitchen and saw my dad at the kitchen sink doing dishes. He often joked that should have been my first clue. He didn't like dishes. I proceeded to my parents' bedroom to say something to my mother, only to see my dad sitting there next to her on their bed. He would have had to have run by me to get to the bed first. I also saw my brother enter my room. I was in another room and saw this out of the corner of my eye. I yelled for him to get out of my room, and my dad yelled back, "You left hours ago, psycho."
Oh my God. Why?
Are you okay?
No. No.
The other significant experience I had in that house involved my deceased friend. Let's call him Tim. He was very fond of video games. And one day I was playing a video game in Mom and Dad's room, Tim's room before. I was home alone as I was around 16 at the time. I paused my game and went to the bathroom. On my way back to the game, I paused to grab a drink of something, but I remember thinking it would be strange if the game started up on its own. Without a second's hesitation, it happened. I brushed it off as a coincidence and went and paused it again. Again, it unpaused on its own. I sighed and said, "I actually don't even want to play the game. I want to watch a movie, but you can sit and watch it if it's you, Tim." I half laughed, trying to make myself feel less scared. I kid you not, I felt the bed dip and saw the indentation as someone sat down next to me.
Well, you did say he could watch.
You invited him. I took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry, but don't follow me," and bolted from the room. I didn't feel any dark energy. I just couldn't take the idea it was Tim. He had hated being stuck in that room as his mobility was limited, and I couldn't stand it even more if it wasn't Tim. And so ends the childhood portion of this haunting. I'm sure there was more, but those are the significant ones that I can remember most. Moving into adulthood was not the end of things. If anything, my early 20s was littered with experiences. My first home away from my parents was with my first significant boyfriend from 9th grade into early adulthood. He knew about the curse. He didn't believe it exactly, but I told him about it. It wasn't until we moved in together that he truly got a taste for what came with me. Our apartment was one of 3 above an old pharmacy. The other 2 were used for storage by the pharmacist. So it was just us in the building alone as the pharmacy was shut down and the pharmacist was an old man at this point. We heard footsteps in the other apartments, televisions, essentially the sound of people living their lives. That didn't bother me in the least. It freaked my guy out a little, though. He decided he wanted to contact it to see if it was indeed my great whatever the witch. He got a Ouija board. Now, before you absolutely lose it, remember, we were in fact idiots. We Googled it. As this was now around 2011, we looked up all the right ways to do it and assured ourselves that if we followed the rules and said goodbye, it would all be okay. I can say in that apartment, it was okay. We got a few answers, the pointer moved, and we were in awe. The footsteps and activity definitely increased, but I wasn't seeing shadow figures, so I figured it was nothing to be afraid of. Flash forward, we broke up. And I moved on and started dating blah blah move in with serious relationship number 2, who actually became the father of my first child, so we'll call him Baby Daddy, or BD. So BD was very into the paranormal. He lost his father when he was 10, and the idea of ghosts comforted him, I suppose. In the home we moved into together, I experienced the same noises and footsteps that seemed to follow me everywhere. I also started seeing a young blonde girl that we decided to call Lily. Lily was burned on half of her face. She would be standing in doorways or any of those in between spaces when we walked through the house. Sometimes you caught her playing in the corner of your eye. I felt nothing but goofy mischief from her. What came next was anything but. Because of my experiences with the Ouija board in the apartment, I felt confident in my ability to use the darn thing. Again, I was in fact an idiot. We pulled it out to communicate with Lily. She was pleasant enough, but just on the fringes, I felt something nagging. My arms had goosebumps and the hair on my neck was standing on end. What follows is exactly what I remember. What I remember is humming a song. Not a song I was familiar with, but an eerie little tune stuck in my head. The next thing I knew, I saw a meadow. I was walking in a beautiful flower-filled meadow. Someone was holding my hand, and I felt more than heard, "Don't look. Just walk with me." When I attempted to turn to whomever it was, the flowers would begin to wilt and the sun would gray out, I guess. It's hard to describe. Anyways, that's what I recall. Eerie lullaby, creepy meadow, and then sharp, searing pain. The next thing I knew, I was in my BD's arms. He was biting me. Yep, biting me. So to explain, he and my bestie of the time were the ones using the board with me. They both say I dropped my head, and when I looked back up, my eyes were a reddish color. My eyes are hazel, by the way. I moved and spoke in a voice that didn't belong to me. They demanded whatever it was to release me, but instead it tried to exit the premises. My BD had grabbed me, holding me so I couldn't leave, and he said he had no idea why on earth it occurred to him, but he bit me on the neck. And then I felt the pain. I came back to him. To this day, I do not mess with Ouija boards, as no one should.
Oh,
was it like lulling them into a false sense of comfort and safety, like showing them this field
You're
and
asking
flowers?
me like I'm going to have an answer.
I'm just asking.
Let's see what the audience thinks.
I'm just asking in
Please.
general. I'm just asking in general. Like, could that be? I don't know.
I'm
that's why I
just-
said don't look. Like, don't pay attention. Just keep walking through this beautiful field. Nothing to see here.
I guess.
While I take over your entire body.
Oh, that's really scary. I feel bad for the guy and the friend.
Yeah. I'm glad the bite worked.
I guess.
Question mark. So as you could have guessed, BD is called BD because it didn't work out. When we split, I moved away from my small town to a larger, more populated area, but still in West Virginia in the Appalachian Mountains. This home I lived in with my friend and my daughter, who was nearly 2. And that home, I had my last encounter with the Hat Man. I woke, as I had so many times in my childhood, terrified. This time, he was on the opposite side of the bed, but his hand was reaching towards me. It was inches away. I bolted from my bed, turned on every light in the house except my daughter's main light. I had a string of white Christmas lights going through her room as decor, and I had those on though. I stayed awake until morning, unable to return to my bedroom out of fear. After that experience, I told myself if the darkness was getting closer, I should probably heed my cousin's warning and stay firmly away from things like Ouija boards and spellcraft. I had dabbled, and I knew now what could come of it, so I stopped. I did move back home, back to my tiny town. BD and I gave it one more shot. The house we lived in had a basement that terrified me. The door was blocked by our freezer because the door liked to open on its own. No matter how much light you shone down those steps, it was pitch dark down there. I avoided it at all costs and refused to acknowledge the footsteps we heard and pounding from inside the basement on the door. So I'm going to skip a few years of nonsense sounds and me not acknowledging them and go right to the scariest experience of adulthood. because this is getting so long and I've already gotten chills a time or two. Plus, my laptop geeked out and I'm continuing this on my phone now. These sort of things happen when I try to write this stuff out.
Oh my God.
Anyway, let's skip right on up to my first home with my husband, now of a decade. Yay, us. At this point, my daughter is 3 and has been talking about how she hates the dark and seeing the man in the hat at night. I did say it was my last encounter before. He went for my daughter after that. She saw him a few times, and I again strung lights around her bed and left him no shadows to hide in. For years, she slept with these twinkle lights all around her, along with a Bible under her pillow for good measure. Now, in that house, I had a very strange experience. It was so real to me that I accused my hubby of lying to me. He had gone to work, and my little one was asleep. I heard the front door open and come back in, felt him bump the bed on the way by to our bathroom, which I heard open and close. I peeped my eyes open as I had been trying to go back to bed and waited for him so I could ask what was wrong. He was supposed to be going to work, remember? I said something like, "Babe?" And I heard his muffled response through the door, but no real words. I laid back and rested my eyes again, trying to stay sleepy as sleep has always been a hard thing for me to come by. I was drifting back off, I guess, when I heard him rush through the room and back to the front door. I assumed he'd forgotten something. It then occurred to me I hadn't heard our car start. It had an exhaust leak at the time, and trust me, I could hear it start. So I went to the front door to see if maybe there was car trouble. My car was not in the drive. No one was home but me and my daughter. When hubby came home that evening, I asked why he had doubled back, assuming I had missed the sound of the car leaving. He told me he had never come back that morning. He had left and gone to work. I was so sure I asked him to call his boss in front of me. He did, and boss man confirmed hubby had been right on time. If he had doubled back, there was no way he could have made it to work on time as he worked nearly an hour away. Years later, and my sister's home terrified me, as she still subscribed to dead equals deals theory and rented a home where a man murdered his fiancée. I avoided her house for as long as I reasonably could, but eventually spent the night. I saw a long, dark-haired figure in a grubby nightgown in the kitchen that night. She had blood running down her face, and she just lurked in the corner. I'm so desensitized to it now, I didn't even flinch. At the time, my daughter was a few years older, though, maybe around 9, and she obviously saw her too, felt her stiffen. Her eyes widened, and she squeezed my hand in fear. I whispered, "Don't look, just go to the bathroom." It was the furthest room from the kitchen, straight shot, opposite direction of the spirit, and the light was already on. She bolted to the bathroom, and I met her in there to explain the family curse and why she can't acknowledge these things when she sees them. We all see them. We have to choose to let them in. As I said, I'm sure there's more that I'm missing or forgot, but as of now, those are the major things that I remember. I don't know if I truly believe the old family curse, but I'd rather stay safe than be sorry. I don't dabble. I don't acknowledge. I follow the most tried and true rule of Appalachia. If you see something, if you hear something, say it with me, ghosties. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. That's so scary.
Shae.
Oh my God.
That was a frightening set of circumstances. Many circumstances. Series of circumstances.
I don't know what to say. I am intrigued by the great whatever something.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to know her name.
Well, you could go ask her. Just knock on her grave.
Yeah, that?
That's so scary.
I want to know more. I want to know her story. I
just
need
scared
to
myself
know.
Really badly.
This is... Wow. Well, okay. All of those stories were like a typical listener stories episode, but it's like each one would be from a different person.
Yeah.
This all came from
one single person's life.
My goodness.
Just decades of terror. I'm sorry you experienced that, but I'm glad your cousin came to you and was like, "Guys, we all do. Just don't talk to them. Yep. Don't dabble,
Good
and
idea.
You'll be fine."
I think that's a great idea.
A little terrified all the time, but fine.
It doesn't happen if you don't believe that it happened. Even if you see it in front of you. No, you didn't.
I'm intrigued by these like old Appalachian like demons, whatever you call them, spirits, darkness, but not intrigued enough to look further into it. Because I'm really scared.
I'd like to look further into it. I want to know her story.
I'm scared too. Like Appalachia is another place entirely. It's like
I'm not going to
oldest place on earth.
I'm not going to go there. I just want to know more about this woman.
But that is our last Appalachia Listener Stories episode for now. We will come back.
For this month.
For this month. We will come back. Of course. Of course we will. So if you have stories that you'd like to send to us, if anybody else has a 30-year-old family curse that's been plaguing you your entire life, please email us, ghosteaspod@gmail.com. And also, I'm sorry. And if you would like to, please like this video, share it with your friends if you feel compelled to do so, and subscribe for more. Like I said, we have our final Appalachia topic for the month of April coming on Monday. It's the one our patrons picked. It's a good one. It's moon-eyed people.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes. They're like an ancient,
I don't know anything
possibly
about it.
civilization. We'll see. You'll learn on Monday. It's a good one. And if you'd like to join our Patreon and you can choose next month's topic, you can do that. It's patreon.com/ghosties, also written in our description. You can follow the link there. Follow us on Instagram or TikTok, Facebook @GhostiesPod, pretty much anywhere. Come say hi. We'd love to see you. And other than that, we will see you on Monday.
I'm very unsettled. Goodbye.